So how does it feel to know that you've been lied to your entire life? Not just by the government, not just by the media, but by your own mind. See, from the moment you're born, you've been taught that your thoughts and feelings are real, that what you feel is truth, that what you think is reality. But guess what? It's not. Your thoughts are not truth. Your feelings are not facts. They are just your past programmed patterns, recycled emotions, unconscious assumptions, and they're quietly running your life. That voice in your head, you're always trying to make sense of things. That's not clarity, that's a cage. And if you're coming to the second half of your life and you're still feeling trapped, still chasing fulfillment, and still coming up short, it's because you've been using the wrong tool to build your life. You're stuck because you're using an outdated operating system, and that's called perception. Now, it's not designed to create, it only knows how to recycle your past into your future. But there's another state, one that you've forgotten. Right? It's more powerful than anything you've known, and that's called innocence. Yes, I know, it sounds soft, maybe even childish, but let me tell you one thing. Innocence is childlike, not childish. There's a big difference. See, when you're young, before life teaches, us fear, doubt, limitation, our intuition, it's scientifically proven to be more powerful and more open. As children, we naturally have heightened states of intuition and creativity. This is before social conditioning narrows our perspective. So innocent isn't weakness, it's actually clarity. It's pure, direct, unstoppable awareness. And when you learn to harness that innocence, when you reconnect to that deeper intelligence, that's when you start to create magical things in this world because you're coming from your heart. See, most men think they're logical, rational, and free, but that's unfortunately not the truth. Your mind is always scanning the present through the lens of the past, okay? Biased by old wounds, fears, and conditioning. You think you're deciding, but you're reacting. You think you're clear, but you're repeating familiar patterns, right? And the moment you start to become who you're meant to be, your old identity starts trying to pull you back to what's familiar. But there's a way out of this. It's not by hustling harder. It's not by working harder. It's not by reading more books or fixing your emotions. It's by stepping into innocence, right? A state of clarity beyond logic, a power beyond fear, and creation beyond conditioning, right? When you live from innocence, you stop chasing validation. You move from conviction, right? You stop trying to manage your past and you start creating a future that you want to create based on what's coming from your heart, right? And let me tell you how I know this to be true, right? I remember the first time I questioned with what I was feeling if it was actually real. Now, this wasn't during some meditation or reading a spiritual book or in the middle of a breakdown, right? But I have done the work. I have read the books. I have worked with the coaches. I have took the courses. I have journaled, visualized, done all the affirmations. And yes, these all helped me on my journey until they didn't. Right? One morning I woke up and I had this massive weight on my chest. And I wouldn't say it was fear. It was just like this deep fog, like something was missing. Right? And I remember getting up and kind of leaning on my sink in the mirror and thinking, you know, why do I still feel like I'm faking it? Right? I had the success, right? I had, the body that most men would kill for. I had a beautiful wife, a beautiful family, and a super successful business. But see, underneath it all, there was this voice that was saying, you're still not free. You're still performing, right? You're still looking for permission. You're still not doing what you're supposed to do, right? And that hit me hard because I thought I was creating from my truth, right? I thought I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, but instead I was chasing a life that made sense based on who I thought I had to be instead of listening to who I actually was, right? And that's when things started to shift because once I saw that, I couldn't unsee it. And I've realized I was addicted to making sense. Every move I made had to be logical, safe, and explainable. But all that logic, it was just another cage built by old definitions. If I wanted to be free, I had to let go of needing to know. I had to surrender the obsession of trying to figure everything out and step into something much deeper. That's when I started to practice what I now call is innocence. Right? Now, this didn't all happen, in one go. Right? There was no lightning bolt moment. It was little by little, right? Because I was working. I told you I was working with the coaches, and so I was getting help by doing this, right? But I stopped chasing answers. I stopped trying to fix every single emotion. Right? I started to let myself sit in not knowing and being okay with not knowing. Right. And that's when things started to shift. I started to see things, I hadn't seen before, feel things that I'd numbed out for years. And I started to have this level of clarity and direction and peace that I had never felt before. And no external success had ever given me. Right. And this is the thing. There was no special technique that got me there. It was actually the absence of a technique. It was just dropping into my heart, into presence, and without needing to label or solve or explain. And that's what innocence is. And the more that I practiced it, the more powerful I became. Not louder, not tougher, clearer. Right? You see, from that clarity, I made a decision I never ever thought I would make. Right? I put my barber shop up for sale. Right, just like that. Okay, one day I went and I just dropped into my heart, and I knew that was it. I'd built this from the ground up. I had a dream that I had for years and years, right? I had created, and it was an amazing shop. It was a dream. I loved it, but I just knew that it wasn't for me anymore. And everyone thought I was mad. My wife, that's another story. My mum, my dad, they knew how much it meant to me. They saw how much I'd given it, right? And also, that was all this financial safety and security, So it was a massive thing. I knew my life was going in a different direction. I had my spiritual awakening. I had started to see a new path being kind of formulated for me. And no amount of explaining would help them understand this. And honestly, I didn't need them to understand because I knew in my heart this was the right move for me. I didn't know what was next. I didn't know how I'd survive, but for the first time in my life, I didn't know and I didn't care. And that was a power, that I experienced. And I want every man to be able to feel that before it's too late. Because see if I can crawl out of addiction, self-destruction, decades of reprogramming, and reconnect to that creative force that I was born with, then so can you. You've just forgotten what it feels like to trust yourself that deeply. But it's still there. Okay, it's buried under the layers of noise, survival, programming, striving. There's a version of you that sees clearly, moves calmly, and creates magic from truth. And that's who we're waking up right now. Okay, so let's dive deeper because there's a real shift happening right now. Okay, and we should be getting taught this stuff in school, but we don't, right? Our children should be getting taught this, but they're not. Okay, there's two fundamentally different ways of knowing reality, right? There's perception and intuition. Perception is our default mode. It's the ego's lens on the world, shaped entirely by past experience, trauma, social conditioning, unconscious beliefs. It's the story you tell yourself about life and then mistake it for reality. Right? Your perception isn't an accurate reflection of truth. It's a filtered projection of your past. Right? Let me say that in a different way. Your thoughts and feelings are not reality. They are reactions based on outdated unconscious beliefs. The problem is, we've been taught that what we think and feel is truth. But look around, look at your life, look at society. Does it look like clarity to you? No, shit, no. It's confusion, it's struggle, it's chaos. It's, men trapped in loops of depression, anxiety, regret, limitations, falseness. Because perception is inherently limited. It's locked into a cage of the known. It's always recycling your past into your future. But this is the thing. Why are we not getting taught this in school? Because there's another mode of awareness, and that's intuition. That is your superconscious, your inner genius, your direct connection to infinite intelligence. It's the aspect of you that sees beyond logic, beyond past condition, beyond fear. Ancient traditions have known this for millennia. They've known about this mode of awareness for as long as the Earth's been here, right? What do you call them? The Tao Te Ching They call it the woo-wee, right? Action without force, alignment without struggle, right? Hermeticism, they identify it as the principle of mentalism, understanding reality is created from within. And even in the biblical texts, they say it as you must be born again. That doesn't mean baptized. That means awaken from your perception to your intuition, right? And science is catching up as well, right? Neuroscience confirms this, that perception is subjective, not objective truth. Right, I've said this before, your brain processes 400 billion bits of information per second, but consciously, you only experience 2,000 bits. Why these specific 2,000 bits? Okay, because they match your unconscious bias and your beliefs. Right, you literally filter out reality, seeing only what you programmed yourself to expect. Right, and there was a neuroscientist, Dr. Andrew Newberg, and he found that individuals who enter deep intuitive states, what he calls enlightened awareness, their brain scan reveals significant activation related to insight, clarity, and innovation. And this is a state that athletes call the zone or artists call flow. It's intuition, it's innocence, right? Innocence, it's about letting go of the need to know. Right? Your rational mind, the ego, always demands to know everything. It always demands clarity, always seeking explanations, always tries to categorize reality based on what it already understands. But this is a limitation. Your ego can't create something new because it only knows how to rearrange what's old. This is why innocence is so powerful. It bypasses the ego's constant need for certainty, for logic and control. It opens your mind up to possibilities your ego cannot see. In innocence, you drop the tension of needing to understand and immediately enter a state of deep awareness. You literally expand your consciousness, right? And that allows more of those 400 billion bits to surface into your awareness. This is how real creativity and insight and innovation happens. This is not woo woo. This is neurobiology. Okay? And let's simplify it. Perception is your prison, locked in your past. Intuition is your key, open to limitless possibility. But there's one more crucial element you need to understand. Your emotions are designed for survival, not creativity. Right? Emotions help us make rapid decisions based on past experiences, but they aren't designed to innovate or create something new. Right? They keep you alive, but they also keep you limited. Your emotions aren't giving you insight into reality, they're giving you insight into your past beliefs about reality. This is why emotional reaction is fundamentally uncreative. It's why you keep hitting ceilings in your life. It's why you feel stuck no matter how hard you try to push. Because real creation demands something beyond emotional reaction. It requires intuition, your direct, unfiltered access to inspired thought, to superconscious clarity, to innocence. Now, this isn't just theory, right? It's practical, it's measurable, it's scientifically backed. So if you, well, like me, breaking into that second part of your life and you want to break free from these loops of frustration, anger, limitation, I can tell you this, you don't need more therapy. You don't need more motivation. You need to claim your innocence, the part of you that can see clearly without the past hijacking your every single move. Because until you access this state, you're not really living your life. You're just replaying someone else's. But when you can master your intuition, when you learn how to hold innocence as a weapon, you become unstoppable. And seeing a world full of men reacting unconsciously, innocence would be your unfair advantage. Okay, and let me show you how far back this goes. Right, because if you want to truly grasp the power of innocence, you have to understand the stories that have kept this truth alive for centuries. Right, seeing the original legend of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, right, something profound happened that almost everyone overlooks. Right, the knights, these warriors, known for their bravery, honour, and strength, they were desperately searching for the Holy Grail. They believed the Grail was a physical treasure, an external source of power and eternal life. But the Grail was never a cup, it was never a relic, it was a state of consciousness, right? And it was symbolised by the knight named Galahad. right? Galahad wasn't the strongest knight. He wasn't the most experienced, but he possessed something far more powerful than all of them, and that was innocence. Now, this is why it's so important not to confuse innocence with childish naivety. Galahad's innocence was fierce, pure, uncorrupted. It was a state of clear-eyed awareness, untouched by ego, fear, or limiting beliefs. And this is what the story tells us, right? It says, when the other knights beheld Galahad's innocence, they recognized it as an extreme power and immediately sought it out for themselves. Okay, we get that? So, in mythology, the sword always symbolizes power, right? Arthur had Excalibur, Lancelot had his own mighty sword, but Galahad wielded a different blade, and it was the most powerful sword in all the land, the Fleur de Lis, right? And this is what most people miss. The Fleur de Lis wasn't powerful because it was sharper, heavier, or stronger. No, it was more powerful because it was wielded by innocence, right? Innocence was Galahad's true weapon. It gave him direct access to deeper truths. It allowed him to move with clarity and precision, right? Untouched by fear, hesitation, or egoic doubt, right? It let him see what other men could not see because he was filtering reality through, you know, his own intuition, his innocence. And he wasn't filtering it through limiting perceptions of past wounds. So while other knights tried to force a way to the Grail, battling through illusions, fears, doubts, Galahad simply knew. He embodied intuition. He embodied innocence. He embodied pure, undistorted awareness. And because of that, only Galahad was able to reach the Grail. So if you let that sink in for a moment, the greatest warriors of legends, right? Arthur, Lancelot, couldn't achieve their deepest quest through strength, intellect, or willpower alone, right? Because the Holy Grail, the symbol of ultimate wisdom, fulfillment, and spiritual truth, can't be reached through egoic struggle. It can only be reached through innocence. This is the lost teachings of the knights. This is where the real power this comes from. This is what it looks like. Not dominance, not control, not brute force, but clarity, truth, intuition. Right? The knights had to lay down their old identities, right? The warriors, the heroes, the achievers, because those identities, no matter how strong, were still bound by perception. Only Galahad in his purity could walk free from the illusions that trapped everyone else. And the lesson here for you, as a man on his own hero's journey, you know, your greatest power is not your past achievements, your strategies, your intellect, or your strength. It's your capacity to reclaim your innocence. Because innocence isn't weakness, it's the ultimate clarity, the ultimate awareness. It's the power to see reality without distortion, limitation, or fear. Right? The ancient myth of Galahad, this has survived through centuries, right? Because it points to one truth: real power, real creativity, real fulfillment comes from a state of mind beyond ego, beyond your limiting perceptions. It comes from innocence. And your quest, like the knights, is to reclaim it, to embody it, to wield it, not as a child, but as a warrior awakened to the deepest truth of his power. This is your path now. This is your initiation. Because the man who remembers how to enter his innocence is the man who can hold the sword, right? The fleur de lis of intuition and clarity. You become unstoppable, right? So, how do we practice intuition or innocence, should I say? Right? This isn't just philosophy. This isn't just theory. There's something you can do right now, today. Right? Innocence isn't some elusive state reserved for monks or mystics or some spiritual guru sitting on the top of a mountain. It's a skill, a muscle you can build deliberately. And the more you train it, the more it becomes your default. Right? So let's have some practical steps how you can start to reclaim your innocence, sharpen your intuitive clarity, and start to create the magic in your life. Right? So the first one is to neutralize the need to know, right? Innocence is about gaining more information. It's about letting go of the need for information altogether, right? So every day, practice entering into a deliberate state of not knowing, right? So when you find yourself in tension, confusion, or stress, just stop, take deep breaths, and consciously say to yourself, I don't know and I don't care. Notice the release of pressure, feel the openness, and allow answers and insight to arise rather than try to force them. Right? Your first instinct will always be to rush to try and understand. Don't. Stay open, stay curious, and stay in the tension of not knowing, because that's exactly what your deepest insights emerge. Okay? And the second one is you have to anchor the state of innocence. Right? To harness innocence, you have to create an anchor, a physical cue, to instantly bring you back to that state. So, in order to do this, sit quietly and just enter a relaxed state for about 3 to 5 minutes. Right? Think about a moment when you felt clear, free, connected, or deeply at peace. The way I do it is I think of my children when they were babies in the crib, or even when they were toddlers, when they were at that stage of pure innocence, joy, and wonder. Right? When you feel this, feeling of just innocence, this clarity, this is when you pick a knuckle, right? And you press your thumb against it, so you grab it like that, okay? You could do it on your earlobe, but you can do it on there. So you're just grabbing it like that, and you just hold it for about 30 seconds, and you're constantly thinking that state, and you hold it for 30 seconds and you let it go. Okay. And then you do this as many times as you need to, right? But the more you do it, the more your nervous system will start to remember it, and it will trigger it. So every time you want to drop into innocence, then you can just do that and you will drop into that state. Okay. So the next point. Okay. So it's about observing the obvious, right? Most men stay trapped because they only see what they expect to see, right? Innocence means breaking the habit of filtering reality. Okay. So through the day, right? Pick a moment on a walk, wherever you are, in a meeting or a conversation, and consciously, expand your awareness. Notice what's actually there, not what you assume or expect. Right? Quietly acknowledge details, subtleties, feelings that you would normally overlook. Right? Refuse to judge or interpret immediately. Simply hold your attention on what's obvious. Right? This trains your brain to perceive reality more fully beyond the narrow filter of past conditioning. Okay? So, next one, making it up. This is where you decipher symbols, basically. Okay, this is the key to intuition that most people don't learn. Intuition doesn't speak in logic, it speaks through symbolism, impressions, subtle nudges. So when you enter a state of innocence, you'll receive intuitive hits, right? Subtle impressions or symbols. Rather than dismissing these, as nonsense, ask yourself, what does this mean to me? Right? Use your imagination to translate the subtle energy into practical insight. Trust the first meaning that comes up. Right? This isn't guessing, this is tapping into your deeper language of superconscious. And over time, you'll realize that these intuitive hits are guiding you towards truth. Now, I'll put it all down into so you can understand it, right? So for example, when I was going before I started this YouTube journey, and I was looking for my next obvious step. It was about 18 months ago. I was doing an intuitive practice. So I dropped into innocence. I sat there, dropped into my heart, put my anchor on, okay, and I asked for guidance for my next step. Now I got a microphone, right? And the way that, so I deciphered it, and I said, what that means to me is, and then I started intuitively writing, right? And basically that was telling me that YouTube was for me to openly express and communicate, on YouTube. That was my next step. Now, it still took me 18 months because I still had a lot of work to do, but that's to give you an idea of how you do it. So you choose an end result of what you want to uncover. You go back into the state of innocence, so that creative childlike state. You ask for a symbol, right? So you go with the first thing that you get. You observe what's obvious about it, what that means to me is, and then you just start writing down or speaking it into a tape recorder, right? And just keep talking or writing, and keep writing and talking until you cannot, do it anymore, and be as specific as you possibly can. Okay. So again, I'll do it again. Choose the end result. Okay. Always go back to the state of innocence, the childlike nature. Okay. Ask for a symbol. Go with the first thing that you get, right? And then observe what's obvious about it, and then start to write what that means to me is, or speak it in. Be specific, always assume that there's more, and just keep writing or speaking until you can't write or speak anymore. Got it? Brilliant. Okay, because this is, you won't master it on a one-time thing, right? This is something you have to practice. It's like a muscle. You have to repeatedly do it. You have to build that muscle, right? So when you practice these tools relentlessly, you make innocence your baseline. Because see, a man you can enter the state of innocence at will. This man who can create from intuition rather than limitations, that is true power. That is true power. This is how you create magic. This is how you live the life that you want to live. Okay? And, you know, for me, I can only tell you how much it changed my life, right? And let me tell you this, you're not here by accident. You didn't watch all the way up to now, right? By, you know, some, you know, coincidence. You're here to understand this. You're here because something inside you has brought you here. It's done living a lie. It's done tolerating a life shaped by old wounds, by, tired stories, by false beliefs, right? Today you've seen beyond the illusion. You remember the truth that most men never get to remember. You were born powerful, clear, and connected, not separate, fearful, and reactive. So the state of innocence isn't childish. It's the rawest, most savage form of clarity available to you, and you have the opportunity to harness it right now. Okay, because innocence is your reset button. It's a place that you can, forget about your past losses, and you have power over your future. It's the moment you stop coping and start creating. Okay, so the next question is, are you ready to start living from your truth? Because the truth is pretty simple. Your thoughts and feelings are not real. They're reflections of your conditioning. Your identity isn't fixed. It's fluid, and it's ready to evolve right now. And your future isn't limited by your past. It's limited by your attachment to the past. And the moment you embrace innocence, the moment you choose intuition over perception, clarity over confusion, truth over conditioning, your entire reality will shift. You stop chasing worth because you are worth. You stop looking for answers because you are the answer. You stop hoping life will change because you are actively changing it, creating it. This is the power of innocence. This is the sword in your stone, waiting only for your hand. Okay, the moment is yours, brother. Let's take it. You're born to live a life beyond your wildest dreams. You're here to shape it. Okay, so I've got one decision for you to make. You can click away from this video and go back to your life and keep living a loop of old patterns and conditioned responses, or you can choose something different. You can choose to embody innocence. You can choose to step out of perception, and you can choose to tune into that true, raw, unstoppable power. If you're done playing small, right? Done living inside someone else's story, done believing your feeling and thoughts are facts, here's what I want you to do. I want you to type in the comments, I choose innocence. Claim it, carve it into your reality, right? And then just pick one area of your life that's being ruled right now. This could be your fitness, this could be your relationships, your career, your finances, anything. And just for today, approach it from a place of innocence. Don't try to solve it from your past. Don't analyze it through old emotions. Okay, instead, stop, breathe, go inward and ask yourself one simple question. If I knew nothing, if I believed nothing, if I feared nothing, what is the next obvious step I would take? Then trust it and take it. Okay? And last step, if you want to join me in this journey, please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bells. This isn't just another YouTube channel, I promise you. This is a movement, a brotherhood, a community of men, who are approaching that second half of their life, waking up, reclaiming their power and consciously creating their own realities. And if you're ready to live beyond those limitations, beyond the fears, beyond the noise, then you belong here. And if I know one thing, brother, you're hearing this message for a reason. There's no coincidence. And if you know any other brother who is stuck in his head, a friend who is lost, a father, a son, who anyone needs to hear this, send them this video right now. Because someone needs to hear this. Okay? And listen, I truly thank you for sticking to the end with me. It's been a very, very tough week. My throat's killing me. I've been unwell, but you know what? It's because of you guys that I continue to show up, and I love you. All right? Thank you once again from the bottom of my heart. I'll catch you on the next one, and there'll be another video here and you can subscribe here. Take care. Bye-bye.